Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Steve Lindsey. Steve Lindsey is the Chief Information and Technology Officer at LiveView Technologies. He was instrumental in designing, forming, and implementing the LiveView technology platform, the company's video and IoT management system. Because of his intense technical background, he conceptualized and designed the software that powers the LiveView Technologies cloud platform and every LiveView Technologies Edge unit. Lindsey joined LVT in 2011 after leading technology, software engineering, and development teams at multiple companies, including i3 Technologies and Novell. Steve holds a bachelor's degree in electronic and information technology from Brigham Young University. Well, good afternoon, Steve. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. I've been listening to a bunch of your podcasts in the past, and I really enjoy your content. So it's a pleasure being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. And certainly love to have you on as a guest. And just we're excited to start with your story, jump in and share your story with our audience. So, Steve, you've got quite the career in technology as an entrepreneur, and now you're the Executive Vice President of Engineering and Technology at LiveView Technologies. Could you share with our audience the secret to your career growth and what inspires you?
Yeah. I don't know if there's much of a secret. I think one of the things I learned throughout my career is to not take myself too seriously. It's pretty easy to get caught up in notoriety and, all of the different things that seem to be the face of the job. But really deep down, it's hard work. And it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of collaboration, surrounding yourself with great people. So again, I don't know if I particularly have a secret per se, but I will say that the one of the big things that stands out to me is this flexibility to change. We're all technologists, and we all joke about how technology is outdated tomorrow, but yet sometimes we have problems with embracing change, and especially the different types of things that requires you to do as an individual to change. You can get really comfortable with a technology or a capability, and then as technology changes, you find yourself in a situation where you have to, change to that. And sometimes that change becomes painful. It kind of reminds me back at Novell, when I worked there, Eric Schmidt, before he went on to Google, he was our CEO. And he was trying to get all of us Novellites back in the day to change a lot of the underlying architecture from the old IPX, SPX protocols that we fell in love with back in the day to the more modern cloud TCP/IP technologies. And one day we all came into work, and there was a book sitting on all of our desks called "Who Moved My Cheese?" I don't know if you've ever read that one.
Yep.
But
yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, so we all read the book, and it kind of makes you reevaluate. How do you respond to change? And so, yeah, I think as we continue to develop in our careers, that's definitely something we need to prepare. And then the other thing I always found, I guess it's one of those things I was born with, and I think you'll find that a lot of executives are this way, where you have the ability to communicate with people, you have the ability to have a business mind, but then you can also wrap around your head around very complex technical issues. And so that wasn't really hard for me to come up with. But what was hard for me was to put my own agenda aside and realize that I'm part of a greater team. I'm part of a group of individuals who have been tasked with either shareholders or whomever to continue to build a company, and my way isn't the only way. And so you have to learn to collaborate. You have to learn to, as we say at LiveView Technologies, we like to say, check your ego at the door and come with the ability to listen to others, understand what their perspectives are, and then contribute your perspective into it, and then collectively come up with the best answers. So, I think that just those fundamental concepts, they don't change from opportunity to opportunity. And if you can keep those core foundational things in place, you're able to continue to advance in your career. And yeah, so I think that's what's paid off for me thus far. I don't know if you have any other thoughts around that or experience around that.
Absolutely, Steve. I think, some of the best things that we learn from life experience rather than, necessarily whether it be at school, college, professor, but sometimes you have to adapt to the change and really kind of see where you fit into the whole picture and make a difference. So I appreciate the share on that. I really do. So, Steve, let's jump into this next question about the pandemic, right? It's been a challenge working, remotely or trying to make those pivots and changes. But what are your plans for growth and support in your role? And will it be any different than the last 14 months?
Yeah, it's funny, I guess, as we talk about change and we move into pandemic, I think we've all experienced change at really the most impactful way. At LiveView Technologies, we actually had a lot of growth through the pandemic. And a lot of it was due to the forced conditions of moving to work from home that a lot of us experienced. And when you look at it from an IT perspective, we were really putting traditional on-premise solutions with remote VPN access to the test, right? When it comes to scalability. And those companies that were actually adopting cloud native software as a service solutions for their companies, they probably had an easier transition during that. We at LiveView Technologies were a software as a service company. All of our internal IT systems were all cloud-based. We don't have any on-premise anything. And then, of course, the services that we were offering our customers were that. And so what we saw was a lot of growth due to one of the product capabilities we have is to be able to either augment or replace manned security on locations. And obviously during a pandemic, a security guard doesn't necessarily want to go and put themselves in harm's way with a biological agent. So we were seeing a lot of our customers moving towards technology to be able to solve problems that a human normally would have done. But that was also at a point in our company when we were at a very hyper growth stage. And so we were actually almost tripled our company in the last 15 months. And so in that hyper growth, the big challenge we have is trying to maintain culture in the company, trying to get process and procedures and all of these things that typically happen with a hyper growth company in place. And so as we're coming out of this pandemic, it looks like we just see that continuing to accelerate, where we now have an opportunity to bring a lot of those employees that were working from home back into the office. Just imagine a lot of these employees that we've hired have never seen any of their coworkers other than Zoom. They've never rubbed shoulders in person. And so we see a high priority in trying to get them back into an office environment where they can start rubbing shoulders and build that camaraderie that enable us to have that collaboration and innovation that we need. The other thing that we've learned through the pandemic is that the work from home actually works well for especially programmers, developers, other engineering types who like that quiet, no interruptions during the day, unless your dog comes in or something. But you have that ability to work without the spontaneous disruptions that you get from coworkers. And so we find that we want to find a balance between coming back to the office as well as being able to give them an opportunity to work from home. And so we're kind of working in that hybrid world, and that's what we plan to do moving forward. But yeah, we feel very fortunate that we were able to come through that pandemic, actually still hyper growth and growing revenues and hiring a whole bunch of people. Now the challenge is going to be assimilating them, getting them in the culture as I described.
Great. No, I appreciate the share. Obviously, we've all struggled in some sort of way, some challenges, and some businesses obviously were devastated, but others managed to rise to the challenge. So again, appreciate your insights and your experience through the pandemic. So Steve, you're obviously leveraging some new and emerging technologies within your tech stack. Is there anything you might be able to share with us today?
Yeah, our solution is kind of unique in that there is a hardware component to it, and then the cloud traditional software as a service component to it. And what that hardware component is a what we call an edge controller that then is installed in usually some type of a mobile power plant is what we call it. And so if you're familiar with LiveView technologies, you might see some of our stuff in some of the larger big box retail parking lots and other critical infrastructure areas. And so because of that edge component and the fact that a lot of our stuff is run on solar power and is running over cellular connectivity, we have found that a lot of the applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning as it comes to computer vision and to other data analysis that we collect, those obviously have they need a lot of power or they need a lot of computing capability. And so what's interesting in the industry right now is we're moving towards edge computing capability that can run on much lower power footprints. So a lot of the work that you see coming from NVIDIA, where they had a lot of their Jetson and Xavier type GPUs that really can run low power but crunch a lot of AI computation. And then even the advancements with Apple and their M1 chip, where they're trying to do more with less power. That whole industry is very applicable to us and the problems we're trying to solve for our customers. And so that's been a very interesting development to see over the 10, 15 years that we've been around. Obviously, cellular connectivity with 5G has been something that's been interesting to see. But when we first started, we were working with GSM, the old 1X cellular connectivity, and then we saw 3G, and then moving into LTE. So we've been able to see that whole transition of cellular connectivity. But yeah, right now it's really about edge computing and how do you get as much processing power done on the edge, minimizing that data transfer over those cellular connections or any type of broadband connection for that matter, to cloud services that then allow customers to interact with that data. That's been really what we've been about the last couple of years and developing. And so as we continue to move forward and bringing technologies to what we call the edge, where we can get better and more accurate data, and we can provide that data to help with security applications, looking for intruders. We can use that data for business intelligence, understanding, like I said, in parking lots, we can better understand the types of customers that are coming and going. There's all kinds of data we can gather there, and it really now lives within this edge-based AI machine learning capability that's starting to mature.
Thank you for sharing, Steve. And you're absolutely right. There's been a big trend to move a lot of computing out to the edge, IoT devices, you name it. And we're starting to see some real promise with leveraging machine learning AI. So appreciate the share. And Steve, yeah. Can you share something from your career experience that might be helpful for those looking to grow their career in technology or entrepreneurship?
Yeah, entrepreneurship is always an interesting beast. I started my entrepreneurial opportunities back in 2000. So I've been at this for like 21 years. And I would say that when I first started, I was young and I didn't know what I didn't know. Obviously you get caught up in there. Well, how do you raise funds? How do you build a business from scratch? And you kind of get caught up on all those things. But what you typically are not aware of is the fact that, you're up against a wall. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that aren't going to succeed. And the reasons can vary. There can be a lot of reasons for that. But one of the things that I learned in this recent endeavor, and again, I was able to get surrounded by a lot of great business partners that had some great fundamental experience in being very frugal in how we spend money, in really focusing on what the customer wants and not getting caught up in this, just because I can create it means that I should type mentality that us engineers tend to have. I remember the first business I started, I thought everyone in the world would want this little gadget I created. And I learned the hard way that, maybe I was a little unique in that. Not everybody thought that gadget was as cool as I did. So building a business around that wasn't a bright idea. And, in learning that painful and costly lesson, and taking those lessons forward into other businesses, you learn to adjust what it is that you're trying to offer. And so, like I said, this recent opportunity with LiveView Technologies, I was able to surround myself with some great business minds that had already learned those lessons and were able to teach me those, and balancing budgets and just being able to just get in and do the dirty work and sacrifice were absolutely huge lessons for me. Just an example, a story. The type of business we're in, we've got these systems deployed all around the country. We've done a lot of work with Department of Transportation, and they often stick these cameras in the middle of nowhere on the side of a road so they can see the road conditions there for snow plow removal or any kind of maintenance they need to do. And so I would find myself on the road for days on end, just visiting each one of these sites and either troubleshooting issues or doing maintenance on them at the same time that I was coding back at the office. But you think about coming from some of these nice high-tech companies, like I was at Novell, and then you find yourself in an entrepreneurial world where you're on fold-up desks and you're skipping paychecks every so often because you got to make sure you can hit payroll for everyone else. You're out in the middle of 30 below zero weather, changing electronics out of a system that's failed on the side of a road. You find yourself in really tough situations, and you just have to know that that's what's going to happen when I go into it. It's not all overnight success. In fact, it never is overnight success. There's usually years and years of struggle in there before these companies really become something that now you can start having things a little bit nicer, maybe get a real desk instead of a folding desk. But yeah, living that makes it so much more rewarding, I have found too, when you can actually look back and see all of that pain that you went through and then see things starting to turn around and get stronger and hiring more employees. It's just so rewarding when you get to see those opportunities. But anyone who wants to start a business, just know it's going to be tough. And you're going to make sacrifices. You could fail. I had 2 failures before we actually started having some success with this company. It just comes with the business, and that's why sometimes it just takes an extra thin skin, extra thick skin to get entrepreneurial businesses off the ground. And so, yeah, I guess that's the lessons that I've learned up to this point, for whatever value that is.
Absolutely, Steve. No, that's great. We do appreciate the share because we have a lot of guests that have, been an entrepreneur, moved back to the corporate world and then back to entrepreneurship and vice versa. And, a lot of the stories are the same. It's a lot of, hard work. You learn the hard way sometimes, but that's great that you're sharing that. And I know somebody in our audience will take that gem and put it to good use. I really do appreciate the insight. So, Steve, it was a pleasure having you on today, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Brian, for the opportunity.
Bye for now.